In a segment dominated by the rays, you have to make, well, a lot of noise to sway buyers away from getting a Toyota. But Kia thinks otherwise. You don't have to be loud and brash to make a statement. You can do so with elegance and grace, seeking to find your place all the way to the top, and nothing can bring you to a stop. Yeah, that wasn't exactly a Sonet. And on this episode of Behind the Wheel, find out if the 2024 Kia Sonet has what it takes to one-up the race and quite possibly be your next crossover. If you need a trustworthy service center, Shell's here to save the day. Stations like Shell Malolos Bulacan are equipped to serve. With over 20 years of experience in the field of vehicle servicing in the Philippines, and with their key mechanics having undergone training and certification at Don Bosco and TESDA, as one of the biggest petroleum brands in the country, Shell knows a thing or two about quality service. It's a comprehensive experience as well, from service to rewards and even giving back to the community. How? Shell Helix is available for just about any car at every station. They're even partners with my favorite F1 team, Scuderia Ferrari. It's also the care that Shell puts into every vehicle that comes in for service. The Shell Signature Service Check is also there to see if your car needs other things to keep it in tip-top shape, even before your oil change starts. But wait, there's more. Everything from wheel alignment, transmission dialysis, brake cleaning, even car wash and detailing services are available at select Shell stations. Almost any task can be handled by Shell. Oh, in case you're wondering, they do bikes too. Shell Helix Oil Change Plus for cars, Shell Advanced Motor Care Express for two-wheelers. And while all that happens, wait inside, away from the heat, but with peace of mind, thanks to transparent service. And get this, if you have the Shell Go Plus app, you get rewards points, special discounts, and access to promos. Finally, a portion of what you spend on your Shell Helix Oil Change Plus or your Shell Advanced Motor Care Express goes to funding scholarships for future mechanics. How about that? With these things, you know your oil change is all good with Shell. The 2024 Kia Sonet SX comes in at 1,158,000 Philippine pesos, just shy of 100,000 Philippine pesos more expensive than the Toyota Race Turbo. Find out your specs, your colors, prices, and anything and everything that you want on any car that you want by downloading our AutoDeal app, available on iOS and Android. It can also connect you to dealers nationwide to help you find the best car at the best price. We'd be remiss not to mention that there are Chinese crossovers that are larger, faster, and more affordable than this, like the CS35, the M-Zoom, and what have you. But I'd also like to say that there are some of you out there that just aren't ready to make that switch into Chinese cars. I myself know a lot of people that aren't ready, and to be honest with you, completely honest, I think that is a valid preference. Now, I did mention that the Sonet is almost 100,000 Philippine pesos more expensive than the Race. However, the Sonet does start at 758,000 Philippine pesos for the manual, and then you can get it in Matic for 888,000 Philippine pesos, where more often than not, those larger crossovers do tend to start roughly around the 1 million Philippine peso area. But let's make our focus just on the Sonet SX for today, okay? Let's start with the exterior. We've actually done a walk around of the Sonet before. The links are somewhere down below, but let's give you a quick refresher. Up front, you have a 1.5-liter naturally aspirated gasoline engine that punches out 113 horses and 144 Newton meters of torque, mated to a CVT. The setup is similar to that of the Creta and the Stargazer. And just like we've said for the Creta, if it's good enough for a 7-seater MPV, it should perform pretty well on a small crossover like this. More on that in the drive later on. Around town, expect 9.5 to 10 kilometers per liter, which is decent, and on the highway, you can push it up to 20 kilometers per liter. The overall look is very sharp and has strong features. The front and rear are adorned with LEDs, and the cuts make it look much bigger than it actually is. I can see where Kia was going by trying to get a younger audience with sharper and edgier looks on this particular Sonet, as opposed to the more round, more classic looking of the Stonic. Down the side, you will notice that it is a two-tone automobile. The roof is different from the body, But there is an option where you can have the car in just one color. I like the fact that there is an option. You have roof rails up on top, repeaters on your side mirror, 205 millimeters of ground clearance, which is actually pretty decent. The wheels are nothing to shout about. I wish they looked a little bit better, but they are 16 strapped in 55 series tires. There are disc brakes up front and at the rear, but it isn't an electronic parking brake. It's a lever that you pull up, which I don't mind because, well, it is an entry-level crossover. So let's not get on the car for not having all the top-of-the-line stuff. I mean, Jack seems to complain a lot because he thinks that I and this car are pavos. Open her up and it's 385 liters of very usable space. There are some good and bad points. Good is that the car isn't so high so you can load heavier items immediately. Bad because, well, the lip is actually quite deep, but it's usable space enough for a balikbayan box and overnight luggage. When you do fold her, it more than doubles and you can fit even another pair of balikbayan boxes in there. However, there is a small caveat in the sense of a higher lip actually, because it doesn't fold flat. So loading heavier items onto that part might be a bit on the difficult side. Most definitely comfortable enough for 2 passengers. A third passenger might be an issue, not because of leg space, but really because of elbow space. It is somewhat of a tiny car. There are amenities inside, bottle holders on either side and a center armrest with 2 cup holders, but more importantly, 2 Type-C charging points found here at the bottom. Now, the leather is not of the premium quality, but as Jack likes to call it, it is robust. Maybe it's because it's a product that he uses a lot. But that is exactly what the leather does feel like, so he's absolutely right. If you notice my seating position, there is a decent amount of leg room here. I can put my feet underneath, and headroom is actually quite good. I can attempt to cross my legs, yeah. But what I really want to point out is how I'm sitting. I'm sitting in a very upright position, in a very tall position. Now, if you like the way that you sit back here, then you're gonna love how you sit up front. Just like the rear up front, you sit quite tall. It does take some time to get into the proper driving position because the steering wheel does go up and down, but it's not telescopic. So whether you're short like myself or much taller like Jack, it does take some time to find the right proper driving position. But if you're a person that likes to sit tall, like I mentioned earlier, you do actually sit quite tall, and you can even go even taller in this thing. Look at this. I feel like I'm 6'9". Yeah. Play power forward. No, that's not gonna happen. I'm gonna bring it all the way down. You have a 10.25-inch display directly in front of you, which will reveal all the information that you need, which is great. You have another 10.25 touchscreen infotainment system over in the center that has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which are wireless, by the way. It does have a reverse camera with parking sensors, but the camera could use a little help because it's not as clear as I would like. The steering wheel feels good to the touch, as do the buttons on the steering wheel, which are your cruise control and your lane keep assist and your steering assist, and then your audio controls are on the right. It isn't adaptive cruise, but hey, it's cruise nonetheless. And to add to that, there's also a hill descent control in this tiny little automobile. Your air controls can easily be found, and then below that is a button for your parking camera. Below that, you have a wireless charger. You have 2 USB charging points, Type A and Type C, 12-volt socket, a nice short and cute gear lever, and like I was saying, a parking lever where you can do J-turns. I'm kidding, don't do that. It's got bottle holders too, 2 sizes, one that's even big enough to carry Jack's bottle. Although the other one is a bit tiny, and so is this small, well, that's a lot of receipts. How much gasoline did you use this weekend? A small little compartment here. This could be bigger, but I think it goes well and okay with the total size of the car. Now, there is one thing that's glaring in this car that I'm not a big fan of. This system right here, this whole panel right here with the copious amounts of piano black is similar to what you will get inside the Stargazer, which it looks great in the Stargazer. It's a little overkill in this car. Like, it's just too much. Like, I wish that they could have, I don't know, taken a nail file and shaved some of this stuff off to sort of like scale it down a little bit for this particular vehicle. But the build quality, the feel of it, and everything else in between, I think is a step above, let's say, for example, examples of like the Rays and other cars in this particular category. It's just built well. I like the way that it feels. I want to get rough with the... Oh, sorry. Before I lose my mind, do please consider subscribing to our channel because we create all of these videos for you guys. Also, give us a like if you think that this video deserves it. But I tell you what deserves your attention is the AutoDeal app, available for iOS and Android. As I mentioned earlier, it's absolutely free. Try it out. I promise you, you won't regret it. Now, I do realize that I've been mentioning the Rays quite a lot because, well, it is within the same category, right? But let me just point out 3 more things that make this car a compelling argument against the Rays. Number 1 is that it's got a few more amenities, like perhaps a sunroof. Now, I do realize that could be trivial to some, but a lot of people have actually been looking for that in top-end model vehicles. So you've got that. Then the infotainment. It's much better in this car, the 6-speaker sound system, and in general, it just works and sounds all that better. Number 3, and here's the biggest one, is the engine. See, in the Rays, you've got a 1-liter turbocharged 3-cylinder. Here, you've got, granted, it is a naturally aspirated engine, but it is a 4-cylinder 1.5-liter, which means there's a heck of a lot less vibrations, whether you're in traffic or traveling on the highway. So those 3 factors alone, yeah, that's medyo malaki yung agwat. Now, when it comes to the driving experience of the Sonet, I gotta say that it's actually pretty pleasant. The suspension is quite good. It keeps bumps at bay. Noise isolation is, well, if we're comparing it to entry-level vehicles, which is essentially what this is, it's probably on the top of the list when you're comparing it to just entry-level vehicles. So it's pretty good in that sense. And also, the one thing that Jack brought to my attention is the steering wheel, not the steering wheel, but the steering feel is actually quite good. It's sharper than what you would expect from vehicles at this price point. There's not a lot of play in the steering wheel, and there isn't a lot of movement that you need to do when you want to correct things on the road. And it likes to stay straight, actually. So the overall experience is actually quite comfortable, yes. There is, however, one detail that, well, kind of gets to me, which is the driving position. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it does take some time for you to find that one position where you're going to be comfortable in when your long drives are in traffic. It's just that you might need to find some form of compromise in your seating position to get you to what you really are going to be comfortable with. Look, in the sense, just very simply, that since the steering wheel is not set on a telescopic system and it just moves up and down, I, as a shorter person, I don't want to be too close to the steering wheel, but my arms are also stretched out. And what happens there is that instead of using your back muscles to turn the steering wheel, what ends up happening is that you end up using your shoulder muscles, which might get you tired a little bit faster. That being said, I haven't spent over 2 hours at a time inside this car. So currently, with our driving, I've had almost little complaints. Power gets put down pretty good. Again, this is the engine of an MPV put in a crossover, so there's that. It's naturally aspirated, so there's no spooling. And when you wanna, quote-unquote, get racy with it, you can. The response of the CVT is pretty good. It doesn't have the intelligent drive mode that you would find in, let's say, for example, the Creta or the Stargazer. But this transmission is pretty good in its own right. And plus, when you switch it into sport, it does tighten up a bit, and you can feel that it's getting a little bit more serious. And you might actually like that. You might actually consider driving in that mode when you're in traffic or when you're on the highway. I myself kind of look for comfort, so I just leave it in drive. Jack and I are fortunate enough that we drive cars left and right, test them, we get new cars all the time. And every so often, when you sit inside an automobile, you kind of have to get yourself set. Other than the driving position, you kind of have to get used to the air controls, the audio controls, and whatnot. Inside this car, it's actually pretty simple. It's more of a plug and play kind of a thing. You get in, you're set, and you just simply go. It's quite easy. Plus the fact that the car is diminutive in size, it might be a good car really for the city and new drivers, because maneuvering it inside the tight streets of the city, I don't think it's going to be an issue at all. The Sonet is not only an easy car, like a set it and forget it, you get into the car and you're done, but it's also easy to recommend. When you look at the total package of the car and what it brings to the table and its price point, it's easy to understand. Look, if, as we mentioned, Chinese cars are really off the table and you want to get a crossover, then your choices are either going to be Japanese or Korean. Unfortunately, there isn't another Korean or Japanese car out there that brings what this does to the table at that particular price point. And mind you, at 1,158,000 Philippine pesos, I can say one thing about this car, which is that it's absolutely justifiable. And that is difficult to say nowadays, considering inflation. Ooh, yeah.